think there's a lot to be concerned about. I've said I believe he's a threat to democracy, and we should be very mindful of that.
So you'll vote for Biden?
Well, you know, with every... I'm not there yet. I'm definitely not voting for Trump, but I'm not there yet.
The fact that he was Donald Trump's defense secretary, notwithstanding the hopes of President Biden's re-election campaign, and by extension, the very fate of our democracy, rests in the hands of what people like Mark Esper ultimately do. Those Americans who, but for Donald Trump, wouldn't dream of voting for a Democratic candidate, President Joe Biden. But now a generational time of choosing is upon all of us. It'll be among the president's most critical missions between now and Election Day, convincing this demographic, the Mark Espers of the world, to put their country over their party and over their old calcified muscle memory of doing what they think they should do, and join a coalition of Americans hell-bent on protecting our way of life, protecting our democracy, regardless of whose jersey they're wearing. That appeal is the subject of a new ad from Republican voters against Trump. Watch it.
Mike Pence knows Donald Trump better than anyone else, and he knows how dangerous a second Trump administration would be.
I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
Mike Pence is putting country over party, and we will too.
Joining our conversation, the founder of Republican Voters Against Trump, the publisher of Bulwark, Sarah Longwell, is back with me at the table. The host of the On Brand podcast, Donny Deutsch, is here. So I'd love to do this with both of you as often as we can. But Sarah, tell me, you have the data and you have the creative and you have sort of your own institutional muscle memory. What message works for bringing along not just Mark Esper, the man, but all the Mark Espers out there in the country?
Well, look, I think there's two different kinds of sort of never Trump audiences and surrogates. So one is these high-level people like Mark Esper, like Jim Mattis, people who worked for Donald Trump, saw him up close, and saw the kind of threat that he is. And their voices are unique and have real persuasion power for some of these college-educated suburban voters who've never liked Trump, but can sometimes forget the depth of the threat that he represents. And so hearing it from people who worked for him, who had his best interests at heart and the country's interest at heart, who are institutional Republicans, they matter to those voters. And I've seen, someone like General Kelly quoted before suggesting that perhaps it wouldn't matter to voters if he spoke out. And that is wrong. I think that's something that happens during the primary where, whenever these establishment Republicans criticize Trump, it tends to rally people to Trump even more. That's true with the base. It is not true with these swing voters. And so people like Esper speaking out is extremely important. It's also important that they go further than just saying that they're against Trump. If you say that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy, then you have to also say that you are willing to vote for the one person that keeps Donald Trump from sitting in the Oval Office again. And so that message from those messengers is critically important. Now, there's another set of messengers that we're focused on, which is sort of real Republican voters who aren't going to vote for Trump. And that speaks to sort of the same audience, but those messengers have different powers and different elements of persuasion. But I just think it's critically important that we hear from these high-level officials who saw Donald Trump up close. I mean, it should be a much bigger story that the vice president who served Donald Trump is refusing to endorse him. For some reason, everybody kind of was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Donald Trump had his people storm the Capitol and threaten Mike Pence's life. I get why he would endorse him. This is an enormous thing historically, and it speaks to the depths of Donald Trump's dangers. And we cut that ad because it's funny how people just haven't even internalized how significant it is that Mike Pence is refusing to endorse Donald Trump.
It's huge. I led the 5 o'clock hour with it when it happened. Pence sort of undersold it when he mentioned it in a Fox News interview. We came on and led the hour with it. I had the same reaction. I was like, why isn't this, breaking and rolling breaking news? It just never happened in our history that someone's vice president hasn't endorsed them. I want to follow up with you quickly on the generals. This is a conversation Donnie and I started here at the table as well. I mean, what I think some of them would say is that generals shouldn't be telling people who to vote for. It is also true, though, that the American people were told after September 11th, if you see something, say something. And you know who saw a whole lot of somethings? The generals. And there's been an extraordinary body of reporting on what happened in those tank briefings with Donald Trump. A lot of reporting has come out about John Kelly taking messages and direction from Trump to be more like the Nazis, more like Hitler's generals, more like German generals. And I think we get lost in a cloud of Trump's ignorance. Some of the reporting suggested he didn't know which German generals, which war. But the point is the generals saw firsthand exactly what Trump is promising to do if he goes back in the second term, which is to politicize the U.S. military. And if they care about the men and women who serve, I think that they have a duty, if not to tell people who to vote for, to tell people who they're going to vote for, no?
I completely agree with this. Look, these are people who have either sent people to die for democracy or themselves have been willing to die on the battlefield for democracy. And the idea that now you say, well, because I, was a general or I wore the uniform, it's not right for me to speak out. You served in Donald Trump's administration. You understand the importance of democracy. You understand the threat that he represents. And I think that the obligation is total for these people, especially the generals. They would make such a difference. And the permission structure, I live and die by permission structures. And I've always thought courage is contagious. Cowardice is contagious too, but courage can be contagious. And when they speak up with the gravitas that they bring, I think that makes an enormous amount of difference. And there's always this collective action problem, right? Where just sort of one person comes out and speaks out and then everybody sort of attacks them. There's power in numbers. There's safety in numbers. And that's why you have to build a community and come out and say with one voice, all of these people, if they genuinely care about democracy, and I will say, I believe that they do. And actually, I'll add one more point. We're running this campaign with all of these regular Republican voters who come out and make these testimonials, these little videos explaining why they as Republicans, while they as Trump voters refuse to vote for him again. And they put themselves on the line for ridicule or people coming after them in their communities. If they can do that, these generals and these people who served with Donald Trump, they can do that. They can have that courage.
You and I talk a lot about permission structures, too.
Yeah. I've been watching your show since the beginning today, and what you covered on was an image of Joe Biden tied up in a truck, children being threatened, election officials being threatened. This is what's in front of us. It's clear. I would ask anybody to look up Project 25 in their Google, and this is what Charlie Kirk's and the Heritage Foundation and what Trump's. This is what they want to do to the executive branch, and have the FTC and FCC report to it. Bring up the Insurrection Act so the military can be sicked on its own people. Dismantle the FBI. Take apart the Justice Department. These institutions have to start behaving differently now, starting with the generals. If, by the way, I came on the show a couple months ago and said, get 4 of those generals, get Mattis, McMaster, Milley, and Kelly, to camera talking. They need, if you want the military to stay as it is, independent of the president's whims, you have to speak up. If you're a CEO and you don't want your company at the beck and call of Trump to say, you go on, you're going, you're going, you stay, you go, you need to speak up. If you're in the media and you want to continue to have a free media and not have Donald Trump call up Comcast and say, I don't like MSNBC and they're going to go off the air or I'm dismantling your company. These people that have always been on the sidelines, corporate America, the military, the Justice Department, have got to start to speak up. We are under siege. If you can't see it, I don't get it. It's happening in slow motion. And if you love this country, the irony is Trump preaches about patriotism and love of country, yet he wants to blow up everything that's great about it.
He hates Americans.
So if you love this country, if you're any of those people I mentioned, and if you believe in that people died for us 250 years ago and have died from us 50 years ago and 100 years ago, this is the time we all have to start behaving differently. This is a different kind of enemy. This is an enemy from within, and I call you trouble all the time. Like, it is. We're in DEFCON 3, and the institutions, if they want to hold, have to start acting differently now, or they won't be in existence as we know them after.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.